Hi, Dr. Taylor with Aspire Chiropractic, and today I want to talk to you about chiropractic and its relation to brain health. Right here. Kind of looks like Toadstool from Mario, maybe Mario 2. But what we got here, this is a very crude and rudimentary drawing of the skull with the brain here. Now what I want to do, we're going to put in the spinal column, okay? So, we've got the skull here. We've got this big opening. It's called the foramen magnum. It's Latin for big hole, right? Now, this big hole extends all the way down the spine, right? It goes like this, all the way down like that. Now, our brain is so important, it is the only organ entirely encased in bone, right? The next most important is going to be our spinal cord. So our cord exits our brain. In all reality, we've got our brain here, and we've got our brain stem, which actually in some people they found extends all the way down as far as C3, the third bone in your neck. After that, it transitions into your spinal cord. Goes all the way down. The cord itself goes right down to about L1, L2, L3, somewhere in there. At that point, it forms a little bulb, okay? It's called the conus medullaris. Latin for bulb cone or something, I don't know. After that point, that's where your cord ends. But there's still nerves that come out here, and they come down like that, and then they exit the spine. Fun fact, for any of you women out there who have had epidurals, they give you an epidural right around L3, L4. Why? Because that's where the nerves are, right? There's no cord there, it's just nerves. So if they're gonna jam a needle in there, they've got a really good likelihood of missing the important stuff. If they jam a needle in here, they're probably going to hit the cord. You're not going to be happy. But I digress. So we've got the brain in the skull. We've got the spinal cord running down in the middle of all the bones. We'll just draw a couple of them in here. So C1, like that. And then C2, because these are block vertebra. C3, like that. 4, like that. All the way down, okay? Now, again, your brain is so important, it doesn't have a direct blood supply. What? That doesn't make sense. No, so it does, but it doesn't. There's something called the blood-brain barrier, right? So we've got our muscles, blood vessels go right to them, transfers of blood transfers the oxygen, takes all the way the stuff from, the muscles working. That doesn't happen in the brain. There's a barrier around it. And what it is, this is surrounded by something called cerebral spinal fluid, okay? And it's got a flow, just like a river. Now, this fluid goes all around the brain, kind of goes in and out through here. It also comes down the spinal cord, just like this. So it helps supply the spinal cord, supply the brain with nutrients. So blood goes to the blood-brain barrier, exchanges good stuff, takes away bad stuff, and then it goes through here into the brain. And then the brain, it's just like any other cell. It's literally just like our body, right? We take in food, we take the energy from it, we get rid of the waste. Now, our body works like that. Every cell in our body works like that. So our muscles work like that, right? So that's why we're sore after a workout. What that is, lactic acid, that's a byproduct of muscles working. That's a byproduct of muscle cells working. Your brain's a group of cells. Every nerve in your body is a group of cells. So they need energy to work, and then there's a byproduct from it that they got to get rid of. So what happens? The brain does work. We all know that. After it gets done doing the work, the cells that make up the brain have waste products that they got to get rid of. What it does is it puts the waste products into the cerebral spinal fluid, and it takes it from there out into the bloodstream, out in the body, out of the body. Okay? How does chiropractic fit into all this? We've got this flow. It goes up and around from the skull all the way down the spine. So what happens if one of these bones are misaligned? If we've got our fast-flowing river, whoosh, like that, and it's going across the river banks. What if a river bank can shift? So if we've got a river bank here, and a river bank here, what if the bank moves? What happens to this flow? It's going to run into this here. It's going to pool right here. It's just gonna sit there, right? It's stagnant. You ever seen a fast flowing river and then you see a big old rock or some sort of bend in the river, and then there's just that nasty little puddle of foamy garbage? That same thing happens here. Our brain needs energy. It needs stuff to run and to work. When it's done using that fuel, it has waste products. It has to get rid of them. It puts those waste products into the cerebrospinal fluid, which are then supposed to be removed. But again, this has a flow. It's just not sitting there. Goes up, goes around, goes down. But if we have a bone that slides out of place, and we're looking at a pinch right there, what happens to that river? That river gets gunky, real technical. That river gets stagnant. So then what happens? All the stuff the brain is kind of excreting starts to sit up here, muddy up the water. If the water is sitting in a stagnant pool of garbage, if the brain is sitting in a stagnant pool of garbage, how's the brain going to work? What kind of environment is it in? Think of a fish in a nice clean fish bowl versus a dirty fish bowl. There's a show on ESPN called 30 for 30 where they interviewed Jim McMahon, quarterback for the Bears back in the 80s. He was having head problems. CTE is a big thing in the NFL and in any contact sport right now, how the brain is working. His head wasn't working right. He talked to MDs, he talked to neurosurgeons, they took MRIs, they took CT scans. They can't find nothing. They can't help him. They put on all this medication, nothing. He went to a chiropractor. The chiropractor looked at the MRI, but he looked at the MRI down here as opposed to up in the head. And what did he find? Found a bone out of place, disrupting the flow of cerebrospinal fluid, choking the brain, keeping all the garbage up around here in the brain. This is bad fuel. How's the brain going to work on bad fuel? He literally says, within minutes of his chiropractic adjustment, you can Google it, search it on YouTube, it felt like a toilet bowl flushed. He felt all this garbage leave. His brain worked again. How? From a chiropractic adjustment in the neck. How? By clearing up the flow. This is the master control organ here. It needs clean fuel. If you have problems, issues, disrupting the source of fuel to the brain's not going to work right. If the brain isn't working right, the body isn't working right. What do we see with this? We see things like CTE. We see things like Alzheimer's. We see things just like head fog. You know what, Doc? Ever since I've been getting adjusted, my thoughts are clearer. I sleep better. I had somebody once, you know what? I'm dreaming again. Interesting side effect of chiropractic adjustment. So again, here at Aspire Chiropractic, we are ready to help you when you're ready to be your best. Naturally.